The Christmas turkey looked perfect until he found the CIA microbomb trigger inside Christmas Eve. 1997. A retired CIA operative carves into his holiday turkey, and his knife strikes metal. What Raymond Keith Holloway found buried deep inside that perfectly roasted bird wasn't a bone or a piece of stuffing. It was a microbomb detonator, classified CIA technology from the 1980s, technology that he himself had designed during the darkest days of the Cold War, technology that could have turned his Christmas dinner into his final moment on Earth. But here's what made his blood run cold. The detonator was there, active, ready to receive a signal, but the explosive charge was missing. Someone had broken into his home, surgically implanted this device into his frozen turkey, and left it there as a message, a warning, a threat, wrapped in the grotesque package of holiday normalcy. Who had access to his home? Who knew about technology so classified that its very existence was denied by the government? And most terrifying of all, why just the detonator? Why not finish the job? This is the story of a man who spent 32 years in the shadows, eliminating threats to national security with devices hidden in books, pens, and everyday objects. A man known inside the agency as the watchmaker because of his surgical precision. A man who thought retirement meant safety. He was catastrophically wrong. What Raymond discovered that Christmas Eve would unravel a conspiracy reaching the highest levels of American intelligence, a secret program designed to permanently silence retired operatives who knew too much, a program that had already claimed dozens of lives, disguised as heart attacks, car accidents, and random violence. The detonator in the turkey wasn't meant to kill him, it was meant to wake him up, because someone from his past had returned with evidence that could bring down the entire operation. And Raymond had a choice: hide and wait for death to find him in some accidental way, or fight back and expose the truth before it was too late. How does a Christmas turkey become a weapon of psychological warfare? Who was watching Raymond's every move? And what secrets from the Cold War were so dangerous that people were still dying to keep them buried decades later? Stay with us through this incredible journey, and discover the shocking truth behind one of the most disturbing spy stories never told. Subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, and comment below telling us where you're watching this story from, because what you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew about espionage, loyalty, and the true cost of keeping secrets. The clock is ticking, and some timepieces once wound never stop. Reston, Virginia, a planned community 20 miles west of Washington, D.C., where tree-lined streets curve past artificial lakes and modern shopping plazas, where soccer moms drive minivans to organic grocery stores, where teenagers skateboard in parking lots, where retirees walk golden retrievers past meticulously maintained townhomes. It looks like suburbia perfected, clean, safe, predictable. But Reston holds secrets, lots of them, because hidden among those soccer moms and retirees are dozens of former intelligence officers, CIA analysts who decoded Soviet communications, NSA cryptographers who broke enemy encryption, special operatives who did things that will never appear in any official record. They came to Reston because it's close enough to Langley for occasional consulting work, but far enough to feel like they've left that world behind. They blend in perfectly. They look like everyone else. They shop at the same stores, attend the same homeowner association meetings, complain about the same property taxes. Raymond Keith Holloway was one of them. In December 1997, he was 68 years old, living alone in a modest 3-bedroom townhouse overlooking Lake Anne. Every morning at 6:30, he brewed Colombian coffee in a French press, read the Washington Post cover to cover, and ate 2 pieces of whole wheat toast with raspberry jam. By 8 o'clock, he was in his small backyard garden, even in winter, checking on his dormant tomato plants and planning for spring planting. He wore reading glasses on a chain around his neck. He drove a beige Honda Accord with a Save the Chesapeake bumper sticker. He volunteered at the Reston Regional Library on Tuesday afternoons, helping seniors learn basic computer skills. He attended occasional concerts at the Reston Community Center, always sitting in the back row, always leaving during the applause. To his neighbors, Raymond was pleasant but private, a widower who kept to himself but would help jumpstart your car or loan you gardening tools. Someone who'd lived an unremarkable life and was living an unremarkable retirement. That was exactly what he wanted them to think, because Raymond Keith Holloway's real life had been anything but unremarkable. Born in Alexandria, Virginia in 1929, Raymond grew up during the Depression. His father worked at the Washington Navy Yard as a welder. His mother took in laundry to make ends meet. Raymond was the youngest of 4 children, quiet and mechanically gifted from an early age. While other boys played baseball, Raymond took apart clocks, radios, and anything else with moving parts, just to understand how they worked. In 1947, at 18, he enlisted in the U.S. Navy. He served on a destroyer during the final years before the Korean War, working in the ship's engineering department. His commanding officers noted his exceptional problem-solving skills and his ability to fix complex mechanical systems under pressure. After his discharge in 1951, Raymond used the GI Bill to study engineering at Virginia Tech. He graduated in 1955 with a degree in mechanical engineering and got a job at a defense contractor in Northern Virginia, designing components for guided missile systems. That's when the CIA found him. It was 1963. The Cold War was escalating. The agency needed people who could think creatively about technical solutions to operational problems. They needed engineers who could build devices that looked innocent but were deadly. They needed someone who could turn everyday objects into weapons. They needed someone like Raymond. His recruitment was subtle. A former Navy colleague invited him to lunch, asked seemingly casual questions about his work, his interests, his political views. 2 weeks later, Raymond received a letter inviting him to interview for a technical consulting position with a government agency. The letter didn't specify which agency. The interview took place in a windowless office in Roslyn. 3 men in dark suits asked him hypothetical questions. Could you design a listening device small enough to hide in a pen? Could you create a delayed ignition system using only components from a hardware store? If you needed to eliminate a target without arousing suspicion, how would you do it? Raymond answered every question with methodical precision. He understood immediately what they were really asking, and he was fascinated. 2 months later, he began training at Camp Peary, the farm, the CIA's covert training facility near Williamsburg, Virginia. He learned tradecraft surveillance, counter-surveillance, and dozens of other skills. But his specialty was technical operations, building devices that could be deployed in the field by case officers who weren't engineers. By 1965, Raymond was working full-time at CIA headquarters in Langley, in a division that officially didn't exist. They called it the Office of Technical Service, but inside the agency, it was known as the Workshop. Their job was to create spy gadgets that sounded like science fiction but worked in the real world. Raymond designed miniature cameras hidden in cigarette lighters, audio surveillance devices concealed in wall outlets, lock-picking tools disguised as car keys, but his most sensitive work involved lethal devices. In 1968, Raymond was assigned to Project Nightshade, a classified program developing assassination tools. The goal was to create weapons that could eliminate high-value targets without leaving evidence of foul play. Raymond's designs were works of brutal elegance, a poisoned umbrella tip that caused cardiac arrest within hours, leaving no trace. An explosive device small enough to hide in a book binding, powerful enough to kill anyone who opened it. A slow-release toxin concealed in fountain pen ink that could be deployed during a handshake. His most sophisticated creation was the MK-47 Microbomb system, developed in 1982. It consisted of 2 parts, a tiny radio-controlled detonator no larger than an AAA battery, and a shaped explosive charge the size of a postage stamp. The 2 components could be hidden separately in any object, a laptop, a briefcase, a telephone, and armed remotely from miles away. When activated, the explosion was small but devastating, designed to kill the target and anyone within 3 feet while minimizing collateral damage. The MK-47 was never officially acknowledged. Even within the CIA, fewer than 20 people knew it existed, and Raymond was the only person who knew how to build it. Between 1965 and 1995, Raymond deployed to operational theaters around the world. East Berlin in the 70s, when the wall still divided the city and Soviet intelligence was everywhere. Moscow in the early 80s, working under diplomatic cover at the US Embassy. Prague after the Velvet Revolution, helping train newly democratic intelligence services. He was good at his job. Frighteningly good. Inside the agency, they called him the watchmaker because his devices worked with clockwork precision. When Raymond built something, it functioned exactly as designed, every single time. But in November 1995, something went wrong. Raymond was in Chechnya, working with a CIA-backed resistance group fighting Russian forces. His mission was to provide technical support for a sabotage operation targeting a Russian military command post. Raymond had designed a remote-triggered explosive device hidden inside a heating unit in the building. The intelligence was wrong. The building wasn't just a military command post. It was also being used to house displaced civilian families. When the device detonated, 17 Russian soldiers died. So did 9 civilians, including 4 children. The operation was deemed a tactical success. Raymond received a commendation letter that went into his classified personnel file, but something broke inside him that day. He had spent 32 years building devices designed to eliminate specific targets with surgical precision. The idea that his work had killed children was unbearable. 3 weeks later, Raymond submitted his retirement papers. He was 66 years old, well past normal retirement age. The agency accepted his request, but with conditions. He would sign an expanded non-disclosure agreement covering every operation he'd ever worked on. He would submit to periodic wellness checks by agency psychologists to ensure he wasn't experiencing stress-related mental health issues that might compromise security. And he would never, under any circumstances, discuss his work with anyone outside the agency, including family members. Raymond signed everything. He just wanted out. He bought the townhouse in Reston, using his government pension and savings. His wife, Margaret, a former State Department secretary he'd married in 1960, had died of ovarian cancer in 1996, just months after his retirement. His 2 adult children, a son who worked as a software engineer in Seattle and a daughter who taught high school English in Denver, visited once or twice a year. They knew their father had worked for the government in some capacity, but they didn't know the details. They thought he'd been a bureaucrat, shuffling papers and attending meetings. Raymond let them believe that. It was easier than the truth. For 2 years he lived quietly in Reston. He gardened, he read spy novels and found them laughably unrealistic. He took long walks around Lake Anne feeding the ducks and watching families play in the parks. He was learning to be invisible in a different way, not as a covert operative, but as an ordinary retiree that nobody noticed or remembered. On December 22, 1997, 3 days before Christmas, Raymond received a phone call at 9:47 p.m. He was reading in his living room a biography of Winston Churchill. When the phone rang, he picked up the receiver, expecting a telemarketer or maybe one of his children calling to confirm holiday plans. Instead, he heard a voice he didn't recognize. Male, digitally distorted to prevent identification, speaking slowly and clearly. Watchmaker. You thought you could just wind down and stop ticking. You thought you could walk away from everything you built. But some timepieces never stop. Raymond, some mechanisms once set in motion run forever. Check your turkey. Merry Christmas. The line went dead. Raymond sat frozen, the phone receivers still pressed against his ear, Churchill's biography forgotten on his lap. His heart was pounding, his hands were shaking, not from fear, he'd faced death too many times to be paralyzed by fear, but from the shock of recognition. Someone knew his operational codename, someone knew enough about his work to make that specific metaphor. Someone was telling him that his past had found him, and they wanted him to know it. Raymond carefully replaced the phone receiver. He walked to his kitchen, opened the refrigerator, and looked at the frozen turkey sitting on the bottom shelf. A 22-pound butterball he'd bought at the Safeway on North Shore Drive a week earlier, still in its plastic wrapper, covered with frost, looking absolutely ordinary. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he closed the refrigerator door, turned off all the lights in his house, and sat in the darkness, thinking. The question wasn't whether the call was real. Raymond knew it was real. The question was, what came next? He had 3 days until Christmas. 3 days to figure out what was happening and how to respond. 3 days before whatever was coming would arrive. The watchmaker's final operation had just begun, and somewhere in the darkness of that December night, someone was watching, waiting to see if Raymond would make the right choice or the fatal one. If you want to know what happens next, subscribe to this channel right now, hit that like button, leave a comment, and share this video with someone who loves real spy stories, because what Raymond discovers will shake everything you thought you knew about espionage and betrayal. The clock is ticking, and the next chapter will reveal a discovery so shocking that it changed Raymond's life forever. Stay with us. December 25, 1997, Christmas Day. Outside Raymond's townhouse, Reston was draped in holiday cheer. Colored lights blinked on roof lines, inflatable snowmen wobbled in front yards, children rode new bicycles on sidewalks, their laughter echoing between houses. The smell of wood smoke from fireplaces mixed with the crisp winter air. Inside Raymond's home, the atmosphere was different. Quiet, tense, alert. He had spent the previous 2 days in careful observation mode, a skill drilled into him during 32 years of operational work. He varied his routine, taking different routes during his walks, shopping at different times, watching for surveillance. He checked his home security system, a basic setup he'd installed himself. Nothing sophisticated, just motion sensors and a couple of cameras covering the front and back entrances. He'd reviewed the footage from the past week 3 times. Nothing unusual, no suspicious vehicles, no unknown people approaching his property. Everything looked normal. But Raymond knew that meant nothing. If a professional wanted to breach his home, they'd know how to avoid cameras and sensors. They'd know which angles were blind spots. They'd move when he wasn't home, or when he was asleep, or during those brief moments when even the most vigilant person's attention lapses. The turkey had been in his refrigerator, defrosting slowly in its plastic wrapper, for 7 days. If someone had tampered with it, they'd had to do it either before he bought it, unlikely, given that it came from a regular grocery store, or after he brought it home. Which meant someone had entered his house, opened his refrigerator, removed the turkey, modified it somehow, and returned it, all without leaving any obvious trace. That level of skill suggested either current intelligence operatives or someone with equivalent training. On Christmas morning, Raymond woke at 5:30, earlier than usual. He hadn't slept well. His dreams had been filled with images from his past, faces of colleagues, some dead now, some retired, like him, some still working in the shadows. He'd dreamed of Berlin in winter, of Prague in spring, of Moscow in the dead of summer. He'd dreamed of devices he'd built, operations he'd supported, targets he'd helped eliminate. He'd dreamed of Chechnya, of the report that came 3 days after the explosion, listing casualties, of seeing those numbers for children and feeling something inside him permanently break. Raymond made coffee, strong and black. He sat at his kitchen table and stared at the refrigerator. The turkey was in there waiting. Whatever was about to happen would happen today. The voice on the phone had been clear. Check your turkey. Merry Christmas. At noon, Raymond began preparation. He removed the turkey from the refrigerator. 22 pounds of frozen poultry, now fully defrosted, cold and pale and slick to the touch. The plastic wrapper was intact, the safety pop-up thermometer undisturbed. To any normal person it would look completely ordinary. But Raymond wasn't a normal person. He examined every inch of the packaging under bright light. No tears, no resealing, no tampering evident. Whoever had done this was exceptionally skilled. He unwrapped the turkey and placed it in his roasting pan. He prepared a traditional stuffing: cubed bread, diced onions, celery, sage, chicken broth. He rubbed the bird with butter and herbs. He preheated the oven to 325 degrees. At 2 o'clock, the turkey went into the oven. Estimated cooking time 4.5 hours. Raymond set a timer and waited. He spent those hours preparing side dishes and watching the winter light fade outside his windows. He made mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce from a can. He set the table for one: a single plate, a single fork and knife, a single wineglass filled with Cabernet Sauvignon. It was the saddest Christmas dinner imaginable. A widower, eating alone, going through the motions of holiday tradition because it was easier than confronting the emptiness. At 6:15 p.m., the oven timer beeped. Raymond opened the oven door. Heat and the smell of roasted poultry rolled out. The turkey was perfect: golden brown skin, crispy and glistening with fat. The pop-up thermometer had risen, indicating the internal temperature had reached 165 degrees. Done. Raymond carefully removed the roasting pan and placed it on his counter. He let the turkey rest for 20 minutes, as proper technique required. Then he transferred it to a large cutting board. This was the moment. Raymond stood at his kitchen counter, carving knife in hand, staring down at the turkey. His heart rate had increased slightly. His breathing was controlled. Every sense was heightened. He picked up his electric carving knife, a wedding gift from 27 years ago that Margaret had loved but he'd rarely used. He switched it on. The blade vibrated with a low humming sound. Raymond began to carve. The first slice was the breast, a thick piece of white meat that fell away cleanly. The second slice parallel to the first. The third slice. The blade struck something solid, metal. The sound was distinct, a high-pitched scraping of steel on steel. The vibration transmitted through the handle into Raymond's hand. He immediately switched off the knife and set it down. His training took over. He stepped back from the counter. He visually scanned the kitchen for threats. Nothing. He listened for sounds from other rooms. Silence. He checked the windows. No movement outside. Then he returned to the turkey. Raymond picked up a regular carving knife, non-electric, and carefully made a precise incision where the electric knife had struck metal. He worked slowly, peeling back layers of cooked meat. The turkey's flesh was white and steaming, releasing savory juices. 4 inches deep, slightly off-center from the breast cavity, his knife exposed it, a cylindrical object, approximately 3 inches long, half an inch in diameter. Titanium alloy, non-reflective finish. One end had a small antenna, less than a millimeter thick. The other end had a micro USB port for charging and programming. Raymond recognized it instantly, not just the type of device, the specific model, the exact unit. It was an Mk47 detonator, Series 2, manufactured between 1984 and 1989. He knew because he'd personally overseen the manufacture of fewer than 50 of these units, all of them for classified operations. He set down the knife. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. The detonator was here, but the explosive charge wasn't attached. An Mk47 system required 2 components, the detonator and a separate explosive pack, usually C4 or Semtex, shaped and molded to fit whatever concealment object was being used. The detonator alone was harmless. It couldn't explode. It could only receive a radio signal and trigger the charge. But there was no charge, just the detonator. Raymond carefully extracted the device from the turkey using a pair of kitchen tongs. He placed it on a paper towel and examined it under his desk lamp. The detonator was active. A tiny LED indicator on the side glowed faint red, indicating it was in standby mode, waiting for an activation signal. Someone, somewhere, could have a transmitter capable of sending that signal. And if the explosive charge had been attached, that signal would have triggered an explosion powerful enough to destroy Raymond and most of his kitchen. But it wasn't attached, which meant this wasn't an assassination attempt. It was a message. Raymond's mind worked through possibilities with the speed of a man trained to analyze threats in real time. Option 1. Someone was threatening him, showing they had access to his life and could kill him whenever they chose. Option 2. Someone was warning him, demonstrating that others might have plans to kill him. Option 3. Someone was trying to send him a more complex message that he wasn't yet understanding. He needed more information. He needed to know who had entered his home and when. Raymond went to his home office, a small converted bedroom on the 2nd floor. He booted up his desktop computer and accessed his security camera footage. The system stored 7 days of rolling footage before automatically deleting older files. He started reviewing footage from December 18th, the day he bought the turkey, and worked forward chronologically at high speed, watching days compress into minutes. December 18th through December 21st. Nothing unusual. Raymond coming and going. A UPS delivery. A neighbor's cat wandering through his backyard. Normal suburban life. Then, December 22nd, early morning, 3:17 a.m., the backdoor camera captured it. A figure dressed entirely in black tactical clothing, not casual wear, approached from the tree line behind Raymond's property. The person moved confidently, knowing exactly where to step to avoid triggering motion sensor lights. The figure reached the back door and spent 47 seconds working on the lock. Raymond couldn't see what tools were being used, but clearly they were effective. The door opened. The figure entered. The interior camera in the kitchen activated. The figure moved directly to the refrigerator, opened it, and removed the turkey, placed it on the counter, unwrapped it partially. Then the figure retrieved a small toolkit from a backpack and went to work. Raymond watched, transfixed, as the figure methodically cut into the frozen turkey, created a cavity deep in the breast meat, inserted something too small for the camera to clearly resolve, then carefully resealed the incision. The figure worked with surgical precision, occasionally checking a smartphone probably for timing or reference images. After 47 minutes, the turkey was rewrapped, returned to the refrigerator, and the figure left through the back door. Total time in Raymond's home, 49 minutes. The figure's face was completely covered by a balaclava and night vision goggles, gloved hands, no skin visible, no identifying features, except one detail that Raymond noticed immediately. The person walked with a slight limp, favoring the left leg. Not pronounced, but distinctive. A gait pattern that suggested an old injury, probably to the knee or hip, that never healed properly. Raymond knew that limp. He'd seen it before. Victor Orlov. The name hit him like cold water, a name from the past. A name he hadn't thought about in years, but recognized instantly, along with a flood of memories. Victor Orlov, KGB officer, 2nd Directorate, assigned to counterintelligence operations in East Berlin in the late 1980s. Orlov had been a true believer in the Soviet system until he wasn't. In June 1989, just months before the Berlin Wall fell, Orlov made contact with CIA officers and offered to defect. He claimed to have information about a network of Soviet moles inside Western intelligence agencies, including the CIA. Raymond had been part of the team that handled Orlov's extraction. It was a complicated operation, sneaking Orlov out of East Berlin, through Checkpoint Charlie, under a false identity as a Danish businessman. The operation succeeded. Orlov was brought to a CIA safehouse in Virginia, where he spent 6 months being debriefed by analysts and counterintelligence specialists. His information was legitimate. Orlov provided names, dates, operational details about Soviet agents working inside NATO intelligence services. Several major arrests followed. Orlov became one of the most valuable defectors of the entire Cold War endgame. And then, in March 1991, Victor Orlov disappeared. The official story was that he'd chosen to return to Russia voluntarily. The Soviet Union was collapsing, communism was ending, and Orlov wanted to go home to his family. The CIA reportedly gave him money and a new identity, and he vanished back into Russian society. Raymond had never believed that story. Orlov had been terrified of the KGB. He'd made it clear during his debriefing that returning to Russia would be suicide. The KGB had long memories and dealt harshly with traitors, even after the Soviet system collapsed. But Orlov disappeared anyway. And Raymond, busy with his own operations, eventually stopped wondering what had really happened. Now, sitting in his home office watching security footage, Raymond understood Orlov hadn't disappeared voluntarily. Something else had happened, and whatever it was, Orlov had survived. He was here, in America, and he'd broken into Raymond's home to plant a CIA detonator in a Christmas turkey. The question was, why? Raymond ejected the memory card from his security system and placed it in a locked drawer. Then he went back downstairs to his kitchen, where the turkey sat on the counter, carved open, with the detonator resting on a paper towel beside it. He looked at the device for a long moment. Then he spoke aloud to the empty kitchen, his voice steady and clear. Who the hell had access to my turkey? And Victor, ... What are you trying to tell me? No one answered, but Raymond knew the answer was out there, waiting to be found. And he knew something else. Whoever planted this device knew Raymond would recognize it, knew he'd understand the implications, knew he'd start asking questions. This was an invitation, a dangerous invitation, but an invitation nonetheless. Someone wanted Raymond to investigate. Someone wanted him to discover the truth. The question was, could he afford to accept? What do you think? Should Raymond investigate, or is he walking into a trap? Leave your opinion in the comments below. We want to hear from you. Raymond didn't sleep that night. He sat in his darkened living room, the MK47 detonator disassembled on his coffee table, pieces arranged in precise rows like artifacts in a museum. The device had been manufactured sometime in 1987, based on the serial number etched microscopically on the internal circuit board. He'd built fewer than 15 MK47s that year, all for specific operations he still remembered. This particular unit had been designated for Operation Clockwork, a mission in Afghanistan during the Soviet occupation. The detonator was supposed to be concealed in a Soviet field radio and used to eliminate a high-value GRU intelligence officer. As far as Raymond knew, the operation had been successful. The target was killed, the device destroyed in the explosion. But clearly that wasn't true. This detonator had survived. Someone had recovered it, preserved it, and now planted it in Raymond's turkey. The question was, who and why? Outside, Reston slept. Occasionally, a car drove past. A dog barked in the distance. A plane descended toward Dulles Airport, its lights blinking against the black sky. Normal sounds, normal life continuing while Raymond sat surrounded by evidence that his life was anything but normal. At 4:37 a.m. Raymond made a decision. He couldn't go to the police. The detonator was classified technology. and explaining its existence would mean revealing operational details that remained classified decades later. He couldn't go to the FBI, they'd immediately notify the CIA, and Raymond had no way of knowing if someone inside the agency was involved. That left one option: investigate independently. Find Victor Orlov, discover what message he was trying to send, and determine whether Raymond was a target or an asset in whatever game was being played. At 6 a.m., Raymond began his investigation. First step, the turkey itself. Where had it come from? He drove to the Safeway on North Shore Drive, arriving just as the store opened at 7. The manager, a middle-aged woman named Patricia, whom Raymond had spoken with occasionally over the years, was restocking produce near the entrance. Raymond approached carefully, keeping his tone casual and friendly. "Good morning, Patricia. Quick question. I bought a turkey here about a week ago, big butterball. Just curious, where do those come from? What distributor?" Patricia barely looked up from the lettuce. "All our poultry comes through Cisco Foods. Big national distributor, they deliver twice a week." "Why? Was there a problem with it?" No. Just making conversation." Raymond smiled. "My nephew works in food distribution, and he was curious about the supply chain." "Well, Cisco handles most of the major grocery chains on the East Coast. If he wants specific details, he'd have to contact them directly." She moved on to the celery. Raymond thanked her and left. Cisco Foods was a massive operation with warehouses, distribution centers, and thousands of employees. The odds of someone tampering with a turkey at the distributor level were astronomical. It would require access to secure facilities, knowledge of which specific turkey Raymond would buy, and the ability to alter it without detection. No, the tampering happened after Raymond brought the turkey home, which meant someone had surveilled him, waited for the right opportunity, and entered his home with professional skill. Back at his townhouse, Raymond spent the next 3 hours reviewing the security footage again, this time looking for additional details. He enhanced the image quality using basic software, zooming in on the figures, clothing, gear, and movements. The person was approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall based on comparison with the doorframe. Physically fit, moving with efficiency and confidence. The limp was the only identifying characteristic, a slight hitch in the left leg, probably from a knee injury. The gait pattern was consistent with someone who'd had reconstructive surgery that healed him properly. Victor Orlov had been shot in the left knee during his KGB service, according to his debriefing files. Raymond remembered that detail because Orlov had joked about it during one of their conversations in 1989. "The capitalists didn't shoot me," Orlov had said in heavily accented English. "My own training officer shot me during an exercise. Friendly fire, very Soviet. The injury fit." But Raymond needed confirmation. He needed to find Orlov directly. That meant contacting someone inside the intelligence community he could trust. The problem: after 32 years in the CIA, Raymond had learned that trust was conditional, temporary, and often misplaced. People betrayed each other for money, for ideology, for personal reasons that had nothing to do with national security. He'd seen colleagues arrested as double agents, assets exposed and killed, operations compromised by leaks. But there was one person maybe. Sarah Chen, former CIA analyst, China desk, now semi-retired and working as an independent consultant. Raymond had worked with Sarah on several operations in the 1980s and early 1990s. She was brilliant, thorough, and completely incorruptible. She'd turned down multiple offers to join the private sector at triple her government salary because she believed in the mission. When she'd semi-retired in 1996, Raymond had attended her farewell party at a restaurant in Arlington. They'd exchanged pleasantries, promised to stay in touch, then drifted apart as colleagues do. Raymond hadn't spoken to her in over a year. But if anyone could help him navigate this situation, it was Sarah. He called her number from a payphone at a strip mall 3 miles from his house. Basic operational security: avoid using home phones or cell phones for sensitive conversations. The call rang 4 times before Sarah answered. "This is Chen, Sarah. It's Raymond Holloway. I need to meet with you today if possible. It's urgent." A pause. Then, "Raymond, it's been a while. What's this about? I can't discuss it on the phone. Can you meet me somewhere public, somewhere we can talk privately?" Another pause. Sarah was evaluating, deciding whether to engage. Finally, "There's a coffee shop in Arlington, Java Shack on Wilson Boulevard. I can be there at 2 p.m. But Raymond, if this is about something operational, it is. And it involves you indirectly. Please come. 2 p.m. I'll be there." Raymond hung up and drove to Arlington, arriving 90 minutes early. He parked 6 blocks away and walked to the coffee shop, checking periodically for surveillance. Old habits, years of training that never went away, even in retirement. Java Shack was a trendy place with exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture, and young professionals working on laptops. Raymond ordered a black coffee and sat at a corner table with clear sightlines to the entrance and back exit. At exactly 2 p.m., Sarah entered. She was 59 years old, petite, with short gray hair and sharp, intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She wore a navy business suit and carried a leather briefcase. She spotted Raymond immediately and joined him at the table. "Raymond, you look worried." "I am worried. And after I explain why, you will be too." Raymond showed her the MK-47 detonator, which he'd wrapped in cloth and brought in a small metal box. He explained about the Christmas turkey, the security footage, the phone call. He explained everything. Sarah listened without interrupting, her expression growing increasingly troubled. When Raymond finished, she sat back and exhaled slowly. You're telling me someone broke into your home, surgically implanted a classified CIA detonator into your Christmas dinner, and you think it was Viktor Orlov, the defector who disappeared in 1991? I'm certain it was Orlov, the limp matches, and he's the only person who would have reason to contact me this way. Raymond, if Orlov is alive and operating in the United States, that's a massive security concern. Why not just contact you directly? Why this elaborate theater? Because he's trying to send a message without using normal channels. He doesn't trust phones or email or any method that could be intercepted. He needed to get my attention in a way that was undeniable and couldn't be ignored. A CIA detonator in my turkey does that. Sarah picked up the detonator carefully, examining it. This is definitely an Mk47. I've seen these before in classified briefings. They were supposed to have been destroyed after the Cold War ended. They were supposed to be, but clearly at least one survived. And Orlov has it. Sarah set the device down and looked at Raymond with an expression he couldn't quite read. Concern. Fear. Something else. Raymond, there's something you don't know. Something that was classified above your clearance level even when you were active. Tell me. Sarah lowered her voice. In 1991, right around the time Orlov disappeared, there was an internal operation. Codename Clean Clock. It was a purge operation, targeting retired operatives who had extensive knowledge of lethal programs from the 70s and 80s. Officially, these people died of natural causes, heart attacks, car accidents, strokes, but there were too many deaths in too short a time period. Some of us suspected it wasn't natural. Raymond felt something cold settle in his stomach. You're saying the agency was killing its own retirees. I'm saying some faction within the agency wanted to permanently silence people who knew about programs that were politically and legally indefensible. Programs that, if exposed, could trigger congressional investigations, criminal prosecutions, international scandals. Programs like the one that created the Mk47. Why wasn't I targeted? I don't know. Maybe you were too visible. Maybe someone protected you, or maybe ... Double quotes. Sarah hesitated. Maybe you're on the list now. Raymond processed that. It made horrible sense. He'd spent decades building assassination tools for the CIA. He knew details that could destroy careers and expose illegal operations. If someone wanted to bury that history, Raymond was a liability. And Sarah's expression darkened. Orlov didn't go back to Russia voluntarily. He was put into a program, ultra-classified. I only learned about it by accident when I was reviewing old case files during my last year at the agency. The program was called MK Shadow. It was an extension of the old MK Ultra mind control experiments. You're telling me they used Orlov for mind control experiments? Worse, they tried to create controllable assets, operatives who could be activated and deactivated like switches. They wanted people with no family ties, no connections. Disposable defectors were perfect candidates. Orlov was the prototype. Raymond felt sick. Did it work? I don't know. The files I saw were incomplete, heavily redacted. But I found references to Orlov escaping from a facility in Virginia in 1996. After that, nothing. He disappeared completely. Not completely. He's been watching me. He broke into my home. He left me this device. Raymond gestured at the detonator. He's trying to tell me something. He's trying to tell you that you're in danger. The detonator isn't a threat from him. It's a warning about what's coming. Someone is planning to use these devices to eliminate people like you, and Orlov is trying to stop it. Do you know where Orlov might be? Sarah hesitated, then reached into her briefcase and pulled out a small notebook. She wrote an address on a page, tore it out, and slid it across the table to Raymond. This is a safe house in Falls Church. It was abandoned in 1993, supposedly decommissioned, but there have been reports, unconfirmed reports, of someone living there off and on. If Orlov is trying to stay hidden but remain in the area, that's where he'd go. Raymond pocketed the paper. If I go there, you might not come back. If Orlov is unstable from whatever they did to him, he's dangerous. If it's a trap set by whoever planted the detonator, you're walking into an ambush. If the agency finds out you're investigating this, they'll shut you down, possibly permanently. I don't have a choice. If someone is targeting retired operatives and I'm on the list, sitting at home won't save me. I need to know what's happening and how to stop it. Sarah nodded slowly. Then you need insurance. Before you go, record a video statement explaining everything. Give it to someone you trust with instructions to release it if anything happens to you. Make yourself too dangerous to kill quietly. Will you be that person? Yes, but Raymond ... Be careful. The people who ran Clean Clock and MK Shadow don't leave loose ends. If they think you're a threat, they'll eliminate you without hesitation and they'll make it look like an accident. Raymond stood. Thank you, Sarah, for believing me and for helping. Don't thank me yet. Just stay alive. Raymond left the coffee shop and walked back to his car. The winter sun was setting, casting long shadows across Arlington streets. He had an address now, a destination, and a terrible certainty that the next 24 hours would determine whether he lived or died. He drove back to Reston and spent the evening recording a video statement. He set up his camcorder on a tripod, sat at his kitchen table and explained everything into the camera. His CIA career, the MK-47 program, the phone call, the turkey, the detonator, Viktor Orlov, clean clock, MK Shadow. He named names. He provided dates and operational details. He made himself into a ticking time bomb of classified information that would explode if anything happened to him. He copied the video to 3 VHS tapes, sealed them in envelopes, and prepared instructions for Sarah. If he didn't contact her within 48 hours, she was to send one tape to the Washington Post, one to the New York Times, and one to the Senate Intelligence Committee. Then Raymond packed a small bag, a change of clothes, his old Beretta 92F pistol that he'd kept from his active service days, to spare magazines, a first aid kit, a flashlight, and $5,000 in cash he kept hidden in his house for emergencies. At midnight, he got in his car and drove toward Falls Church. The address Sarah had given him was for a house on a quiet residential street, surrounded by trees, backing onto a small creek. The perfect location for a safe house, suburban enough to blend in, isolated enough for privacy. Raymond parked 3 blocks away and approached on foot. The house was dark, 2 stories, with paint peeling from the siding and an overgrown yard. It looked abandoned. But Raymond noticed details: fresh tire tracks in the gravel driveway, a faint light visible through a crack in the curtains on the 2nd floor, a security camera hidden under the eave of the garage. Someone was living here. Someone who knew operational security. Raymond circled the property, staying in the shadows, observing. No external guards, no obvious defenses. But that didn't mean anything. The best defenses were invisible. He approached the back door. It was locked, but Raymond had tools. He'd spent decades teaching people how to pick locks. It took him 90 seconds to open it. The door swung inward silently. Raymond drew his Beretta and entered, moving slowly, letting his eyes adjust to the darkness. The house smelled of old wood, dust, and something else, cigarette smoke, recent. He cleared the ground floor, room by room, empty. Then he moved to the stairs leading to the 2nd floor. That's where the light was coming from. Raymond climbed the stairs slowly, testing each step for creaks. At the top, he saw a door with light seeping underneath. He approached, took a breath, then pushed the door open and stepped inside, gun raised. A man sat in a wooden chair in the center of the room. He was thin, gaunt, with sunken eyes and scars visible on his face and arms. His left leg was extended awkwardly, the knee clearly damaged. He wore civilian clothing, jeans, a sweater, but Raymond recognized him instantly. Viktor Orlov, older, damaged, but unmistakably the same man from 1989. Orlov looked up and smiled warily. "Hello, watchmaker. I wondered when you would come." Raymond lowered his gun slightly, but didn't holster it. "Viktor, everyone thinks you went back to Russia. Everyone is wrong about many things." Orlov's English was better than Raymond remembered, with only a trace of an accent. "Sit, please. We have much to discuss and not much time." Raymond didn't sit. "Why did you break into my house? Why the detonator?" "Because you need to understand what is coming for you. You think you're retired, you think you are safe. But you are on a list, Raymond. A list of people who know too much about things that must stay buried. And that list is being executed. Slowly, quietly, one name at a time. Clean clock." Orlov's eyes widened slightly. "You know about that. Good. Then you understand the danger. Sarah Chen told me. But why come to me? Why not go to the authorities, the media? Because I have tried and everyone I contacted ended up dead. The only way to stop this is from inside. And you, watchmaker, you are the only person who can prove what they are doing, because you built the weapons they are using." Raymond felt the pieces clicking into place. The MK-47s. They're using them to kill retired operatives and make it look like accidents. Yes. Heart attacks triggered by micro-explosive charges and pacemakers. Car accidents caused by explosive devices in vehicles. House fires started by timers hidden in appliances. All using technology you created. And when investigators find the bodies, they find nothing suspicious. The devices are designed to destroy themselves in the explosion. But you recovered one. I recovered 3, including the one I left in your turkey. They were being prepared for deployment at a facility in Maryland. I stole them 2 months ago. I was trying to gather evidence, but I'm running out of time. They know I'm here. They're searching for me. And when they find me, I'm dead. Why should I believe you? How do I know this isn't a trap?" Orlov stood slowly, painfully, and walked to a stack of cardboard boxes against the wall. He opened one and pulled out folders, photographs, and a USB drive. "This is evidence. Operation MK Shadow. Operation Clean Clock. Names of targets, names of operatives running the program, contracts, memorandums, financial records, everything you need to prove what is happening." Raymond took the USB drive. "If this is real, why give it to me? Why not release it yourself?" "Because I'm a ghost. No one will believe me. I'm a Russian defector with mental health issues caused by CIA experiments. They've already prepared my narrative. If I speak, I'm dismissed as unstable, paranoid, a victim of Soviet propaganda. But you, Raymond, you're a decorated officer. You have credibility. If you release this, people will listen, and if I do this, I become a target. You are already a target. The question is whether you die silently, like dozens before you, or whether you fight back and expose the truth." Before Raymond could respond, there was a sound outside. A car engine. tires on gravel, then voices, multiple voices. Orlov's expression shifted to panic. They found us. You have to go now. Come with me. No, I'm too slow. I'll hold them off. You take the evidence and go. There's a tunnel under the house, access through the basement. It leads to the creek. Follow the creek west for half a mile. Your car is that way. Yes, then go. Gunshots, the front door exploding inward. Shouts from downstairs. Orlov shoved Raymond toward the back of the room. There's an access panel behind that shelf. Go through it. Down to the basement. Find the tunnel. Go. Raymond grabbed the USB drive and the folders. More gunshots. Closer now. He pulled aside the shelf, found the panel, yanked it open. A ladder leading down into darkness. He looked back at Viktor Orlov, who was pulling a pistol from his waistband, preparing to make his final stand. Viktor, tell the story. Watchmaker. Tell them what we did. Tell them what they're still doing. Make it mean something. Raymond descended the ladder as the first operatives burst into the room above. He heard Orlov shout something in Russian, heard gunfire, heard bodies falling, but he didn't stop. He reached the basement, found the tunnel entrance hidden behind a false wall, and crawled through, pulling the entrance closed behind him. The tunnel was narrow, damp, barely tall enough to crouch in. Raymond moved as fast as he could, following the slope downward toward the creek. Behind him, he heard muffled explosions. The house, they were destroying it, eliminating evidence. He emerged from the tunnel into the cold December night, near the creek, covered in mud and breathing hard. He could see flames from the house lighting up the sky. He ran, following the creek west, staying low, moving through the trees until he reached the road where he'd parked his car. He got in, started the engine, and drove away as fire trucks and police cars rushed past him toward the burning city. Thank you so much for staying with us this far. The best is yet to come. Viktor Orlov just sacrificed himself to give Raymond a chance to expose the truth. But what's on that USB drive? And who is really behind Clean Clock and MK Shadow? The answers will shock you. Raymond drove for 2 hours before he felt safe enough to stop. He ended up at a 24-hour diner off Interstate 66, near Manassas, far enough from Falls Church that no one would connect him to the burning safe house, public enough that surveillance would be difficult. He sat in a corner booth, ordered coffee he didn't drink, and waited for his hands to stop shaking. In his jacket pocket, the USB drive Viktor Orlov had given him minutes before dying. In his car, 3 folders of documents that might contain evidence of conspiracy, murder, and crimes committed by elements within the CIA. Raymond hadn't looked at any of it yet. He'd been too focused on escaping, on putting distance between himself and whatever forces had attacked that house. But now, sitting in the fluorescent brightness of a highway diner while late-night truckers ate eggs and bacon around him, he had to face the question, what now? He couldn't go home. If they'd found Orlov, they knew about Raymond's involvement. His townhouse in Reston was compromised. Maybe they were there right now, waiting. Or maybe they'd already searched it, taken his computer, his files, erased his existence the way they'd erased Orlov's. He couldn't go to Sarah Chen, not yet. Not until he knew what was on the USB drive and understood the scope of what he was dealing with. He couldn't risk exposing her further until he had the full picture. Raymond paid for his coffee, went to his car, and drove to a chain motel near Dulles Airport. He paid cash for a room, registered under a false name using an old ID he'd kept from his active service days. The room was generic, 2 beds, a TV bolted to the dresser, industrial carpet that smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals. He locked the door, wedged a chair under the handle, closed the curtains, and sat down with his laptop, a basic Dell he'd bought a year ago for managing his finances. He inserted the USB drive and waited for it to load. The drive contained 4 folders: Shadow, Clockwork, Targets, and Evidence. Raymond opened Shadow first. What he found made his skin crawl. Operation MK Shadow was exactly what Sarah had described, a mind control program. Operational from 1991 through at least 1996, possibly continuing. The goal was to create manageable assets, operatives who could be psychologically conditioned to follow orders without question, then deactivated when no longer needed. The program used a combination of pharmaceutical conditioning, psychological manipulation, and something called trauma-based reassociation therapy. Raymond didn't understand all the technical jargon, but the implications were clear. They were breaking people's minds, then rebuilding them as tools. Viktor Orlov was Subject 7. His file contained intake notes from March 1991, shortly after his official departure from the United States. The notes were clinical, detached. Subject exhibits high intelligence, multilingual capability, operational training from hostile intelligence service, excellent candidate for reconditioning. Family ties minimal, expendable if program fails. They'd kept him in a facility called Site Blackwood, location classified. For 3 years, they'd subjected Orlov to treatments, drugs that disrupted memory formation, isolation that broke his sense of self, conditioning exercises that rewired his loyalties. The file contained photographs. Orlov strapped to a chair, electrodes attached to his skull. Orlov in a cell, curled in a corner. Orlov being interviewed by doctors in white coats who took notes while he screamed. Raymond had seen terrible things in his career. He designed devices meant to kill people. He'd supported operations that resulted in deaths, but this was different. This was systematic torture disguised as science, conducted by his own government on a man who'd trusted them. The file noted that Orlov escaped Site Blackwood in August 1996. He'd overpowered a guard during a transfer, killed two security personnel, and disappeared. The CIA had conducted an internal manhunt but never found him. The incident was classified, never reported to law enforcement, buried in the records as a test subject malfunction. Raymond closed the shadow folder and opened Clockwork. Operation Clean Clock. Sarah had been right about everything. The file contained a target list, 37 names, retired CIA operatives, all with extensive knowledge of assassination programs, covert operations, and technology that officially didn't exist. The list included dates next to each name. Some were marked complete with notation of cause of death: heart attack, car accident, drowning, house fire, stroke. 22 names were marked complete. 15 remained, including one name that made Raymond's blood turn to ice: Holloway, Raymond Keith. Date: pending. He was on the list. They were planning to kill him. It was just a matter of timing, opportunity, method. The document explained the operational protocol. Targets are to be eliminated using methods that appear natural or accidental. Preference for long-established medical conditions, cardiac events, strokes or common accidents, vehicular, residential fires. Use of classified technology MK47, MK98. Other authorized when circumstances permit. All eliminations must be completed before 2002. Close operational window. Before 2000. That gave them 2 years. 2 years to kill 15 people, including Raymond. The document listed the operational team running Clean Clock. 6 names, all current CIA officers, none of whom Raymond recognized. But the authorization signature at the bottom was someone he did recognize: William Hadley, Deputy Director of Operations. Raymond had met Hadley twice during his career, a cold, ambitious man who'd risen through the ranks quickly, known for ruthlessness and political maneuvering. If Hadley was authorizing these killings, it meant the operation had support at the highest levels of the agency. Raymond opened the targets folder, individual dossiers on each person on the Clean Clock list. He found his own file, 3 pages summarizing his career, his skills, his vulnerabilities. The assessment concluded: Holloway possesses extensive technical knowledge of lethal programs, 1968 to 1995. Designed MK47 series, MK62 series, MK98 prototype. Knowledge represents significant exposure risk. Recommend elimination via staged cardiac event or vehicular accident. Target lives alone, limited social contact, death unlikely to trigger investigation. They'd studied him. They knew his routine, his isolation, his lack of close relationships. They'd determined that killing him would be easy and unnoticed. But they'd underestimated one thing: Raymond was still operational. He'd spent 3 decades surviving in the most dangerous environments on Earth. He knew how predators thought because he'd been one, and he wasn't going down without a fight. Raymond opened the final folder. Evidence. This was Orlov's gift. Copies of internal CIA memoranda, budget documents showing funding for MK Shadow and Clean Clock, photographs of Site Blackwood, testimony from other program victims who hadn't escaped. There were audio recordings. Raymond played one and heard a man sobbing, begging doctors to stop the treatments, promising he'd never speak about what he knew if they'd just let him go. The recording cut off abruptly. A note in the file: Subject 12 terminated, non-responsive to conditioning. They'd killed him. Killed him because the torture didn't work. Raymond sat back, overwhelmed. This was bigger than he'd imagined. This wasn't just about eliminating retired operatives. This was evidence of systemic crimes: murder, torture, illegal experimentation, conspiracy to obstruct justice. If this evidence was released, it would destroy careers, trigger criminal prosecutions, possibly bring down the entire leadership of the CIA, which was exactly why they'd killed to keep it secret. Raymond copied all the files to 3 separate USB drives. One would go to Sarah Chen with instructions to release if anything happened to him. One would be hidden somewhere secure, and one he'd keep with him. Then he started making phone calls. First call: Sarah Chen, no answer. Raymond left a message: Sarah, it's Raymond. I have the evidence. It's worse than we thought. I'm alive but compromised. Don't go home. Meet me tomorrow at the same coffee shop, noon. Come alone. Be careful. Second call: his son in Seattle. Raymond got his voicemail: David, it's Dad. I need you to do something for me. Don't ask questions. Tomorrow morning, go to a FedEx office and send a package to yourself. I'll have it delivered there tonight. When it arrives, put it somewhere very safe and don't open it unless you hear that something has happened to me. I love you. Third call: a Washington Post reporter he'd met years ago at a government function. Frank Russo, investigative journalist known for breaking national security stories. Raymond got his voicemail too. Mr. Russo, my name is Raymond Holloway. I'm a retired CIA officer with information about illegal operations conducted by the agency, including murder of American citizens. I have documentation I want to meet. Call this number. Raymond hung up and immediately turned off the phone, removing the battery. They could track calls. He'd used the phone at the motel, which meant they might already know where he was. He packed quickly, left the motel, and drove to a FedEx office that was open 24 hours. He packaged one of the USB drives with a letter to his son explaining vaguely that it was important and should be kept safe. He sent it overnight delivery. Then he found a storage facility, rented a unit under a false name, and hid the second USB drive inside a locked box buried under some old furniture he bought from a nearby thrift store. If everything went wrong, if he was killed and Sarah couldn't release the evidence, there would still be a backup that could eventually be found. By the time Raymond finished these preparations, the sky was beginning to lighten. Dawn of December 27, 1997. He'd been awake for nearly 30 hours. His body ached. His mind was exhausted, but he couldn't stop. Not yet. He drove to Arlington, found a parking garage, and slept in his car for 3 hours. When he woke, his back was stiff and his neck hurt, but he felt slightly more alert. He checked the time, 11:15 a.m., 45 minutes until he was supposed to meet Sarah. Raymond walked to Java Shack, arriving 20 minutes early. He bought coffee and sat at the same corner table as before. The place was busy, lunch crowd, professionals grabbing sandwiches, students working on laptops, good witnesses. Harder to kill someone in a crowded cafe. At noon exactly, Sarah entered. She looked worried, scanning the room until she spotted Raymond. She joined him, sitting down quickly. Raymond, what the hell happened last night? There are reports of a house fire in Falls Church, 2 bodies recovered. Federal investigators all over the scene. Victor Orloff is dead, and they're coming for me next. Show me the evidence. Raymond pulled out his laptop and the USB drive. He showed Sarah selected files enough to prove the scope of Clean Clock and MK Shadow without revealing every detail. Sarah's face went pale as she read. When she finished, she looked at Raymond with an expression of horror and disbelief. This is ... This is monstrous. Hadley authorized this. Deputy Director Hadley, yes, and probably others above him. This goes deep, Sarah. Deeper than we can fight alone. What do you need from me? I need you to be my insurance policy. If anything happens to me, if I die, if I disappear, if I'm arrested on false charges, I need you to release this evidence. Send it to every major newspaper, every member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, every news organization that will listen. Flood the zone so they can't bury it. Sarah nodded. I can do that. But Raymond, you need to go public now. Don't wait for them to come after you. Hold a press conference. Release everything. Make yourself too visible to kill quietly. I can't. Not yet. I need confirmation that this evidence is authentic. I need corroboration from other sources. If I release it now and they can discredit it as forgeries or paranoid delusions from a crazy ex-spy, then Orloff died for nothing. Then what's your plan? I contacted Frank Russo at the Post. If he calls back, I'll meet with him, give him the files, help him verify them. Once he publishes, I'll go public. But I need time to make sure the story is airtight. You might not have time. They know you have this evidence. They'll move against you soon. I know, that's why I need you watching my back. Sarah reached across the table and squeezed Raymond's hand. Be careful. These people have unlimited resources and no conscience. They'll kill you without hesitation. I've been killed by better people than William Hadley. I'll be fine. Raymond, I'm serious. Raymond's phone rang. The burner phone he'd bought that morning. Only one person had the number. Frank Russo. Raymond answered. This is Holloway, Mr. Holloway. Frank Russo, Washington Post. I got your message. I'm very interested in meeting. Can you come to my office? No public location today. 3 p.m. Lincoln Memorial. Come alone, Lincoln Memorial. 3 p.m. I'll be there. Raymond hung up and looked at Sarah. It's happening. I'm meeting Russo in 3 hours. If this goes well by tomorrow, the story breaks and I'm protected by publicity. And if it doesn't go well, then you know what to do. They parted ways outside the cafe. Sarah headed back to her car. Raymond walked in the opposite direction, toward the metro station. He had 3 hours to kill before the meeting. 3 hours to stay alive and undetected. This is almost the end. But please stay until the very end to see how this incredible story concludes. If you're still watching, it means you're loving the story. So hit that subscribe button and smash the like button so you don't miss our next thrilling stories. The final chapter will reveal whether Raymond exposes the conspiracy or becomes its next victim. Don't go anywhere. 3 p.m. December 27, 1997. Lincoln Memorial. Raymond arrived 30 minutes early, positioning himself with clear sightlines to the memorial steps and surrounding area. Tourists were sparse post-Christmas lull, cold weather keeping most people indoors. A few joggers passed by. A group of school kids on a field trip climbed the memorial steps with a tired-looking teacher. Raymond watched them all, analyzing patterns, looking for anything out of place. A van parked too long in one spot. Someone paying too much attention to their phone while apparently waiting for someone. A tourist with a camera who never took pictures. Nothing obvious, but that meant nothing. The best surveillance was invisible. At 3:05 p.m., a man approached the memorial steps, mid-40s, wearing a gray overcoat and carrying a leather messenger bag, glasses, thinning hair. He matched the photos Raymond had found of Frank Russo online. Raymond watched him for 2 minutes before approaching. Russo stood at the top of the memorial steps, looking out over the reflecting pool, hands in his pockets, alone, no obvious backup. Raymond climbed the steps and stood beside him. Neither man looked at the other. Mr. Russo, Mr. Holloway, thank you for meeting me. Did you come alone? Yes, though my editor knows I'm here, and if I don't check in by 4:30, she's sending security to look for me. No offense, But your message sounded ... concerning. It should concern you. What I'm about to tell you will be the biggest story of your career, but it will also put your life in danger. Russo finally looked at Raymond. I've covered national security for 15 years. I've been threatened before. I'm still here. Not like this. The people I'm about to expose have killed dozens of their own operatives to keep this secret. They won't hesitate to kill a journalist. Then let's make sure the story is so well documented that killing me won't stop it. Show me what you have. Raymond and Russo walked to a nearby bench, partially sheltered by trees. Raymond pulled out his laptop and the USB drive. He gave Russo 30 minutes to read selected files, watching the journalist's expression shift from skepticism to shock to grim determination. When Russo finished reading, he sat back and exhaled slowly. This is ... This is beyond anything I've covered. Torture programs, assassination lists, conspiracy at the deputy director level. If this is authentic, it's authentic. Viktor Orlov gathered this evidence before he died 2 nights ago. He gave his life to get this information out. I'll need to verify it. I'll need sources, documents, corroboration. This could take weeks. You have days, maybe hours. I'm on that kill list, Mr. Russo, so are 14 other people. Every day you spend verifying is another day that can eliminate targets and destroy evidence. Then help me verify it faster. Give me names of people who can confirm these programs existed. Give me documentation I can cross-reference with other sources. Raymond spent the next hour walking Russo through the evidence, providing context, explaining operational details, suggesting sources who might corroborate the story. Russo took extensive notes, asked sharp questions, pushed back on claims that seemed too extreme. He was doing his job, being skeptical, demanding proof. Raymond respected that. Finally, Russo closed his notebook and looked at Raymond directly. I believe you. I believe this is real, and I'm going to run with this story. But I need you to go on the record. I need you willing to be interviewed, photographed, identified. Anonymous sources aren't enough for something this big. If I go public before the story runs, they'll kill me. Then we run the story immediately. I'll work tonight, through tomorrow, have something ready to publish by Sunday morning. Can you stay hidden for 36 hours? I can try. Russo reached into his messenger bag and pulled out a business card. He wrote a phone number on the back. This is my personal cell. Call me if anything happens. And Raymond ... Thank you for trusting me with this. I won't let you down. They shook hands. Raymond watched Russo walk away, disappearing into the afternoon crowds. Then Raymond descended the memorial steps and headed back toward the metro. He felt exposed, vulnerable. Every person he passed could be an operative. Every car could be surveillance. Every moment could be his last. He made it to the metro station, boarded a train toward Vienna, and rode for 3 stops before getting off. Then he walked 6 blocks to a public library, found a computer terminal, and checked his email using a secure account he'd set up years ago for emergencies. One new message, from Sarah Chen. Subject line, urgent. Raymond opened it. Raymond, they know. I was followed leaving the cafe, 2 men in a black sedan. I lost them, but they know we met. Be careful. Going dark for now. Will resurface when safe. Raymond deleted the email and logged out. Sarah was compromised, which meant Raymond was completely alone now. He left the library and walked aimlessly for an hour, thinking through his options. He couldn't go home. He couldn't go to Sarah. He couldn't check into a hotel without leaving a paper trail. His credit cards could be tracked. His car could be found. He needed to disappear completely for 36 hours, long enough for Russo to write the story, get it approved by editors, and publish. Once it was public, once the world knew about Clean Clock and MK Shadow, Raymond would be protected by visibility. They couldn't kill him quietly if the whole world was watching. But first he had to survive until then. Raymond found a homeless shelter in Southeast DC that provided beds for the night, no questions asked. He checked in using a false name, ate a dinner of soup and bread, and slept in a room with 20 other men on narrow cots. It wasn't comfortable, but it was anonymous. No one here knew who he was or cared. He woke at dawn on December 28th, 24 hours until Russo's story would publish. 24 hours to stay alive. Raymond spent the day moving constantly. He rode buses across the city. He visited museums and sat in the back of movie theaters. He ate at different fast food restaurants, paying cash, never staying in one place longer than an hour. He kept his head down, wore a baseball cap pulled low, avoided security cameras when possible. By evening, he was exhausted. His body hurt. His mind was foggy from stress and lack of sleep, but he'd made it through another day. He found another shelter, this one in Northeast, got a bed, ate dinner, tried to sleep. Tomorrow morning, Russo's story would run. Tomorrow morning, Raymond could come out of hiding, just one more night. At 2:17 a.m., Raymond woke to the sound of his burner phone buzzing. A text message from an unknown number. Mr. Holloway's story is running in morning edition. Front page, you're safe. Fr. Raymond closed his eyes and felt relief wash over him. He'd done it. He'd survived long enough for the truth to come out. Orlov's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. He slept deeply for the first time in days. When he woke at 7 a.m. on December 29th, the world had changed. Raymond borrowed money from another shelter resident and bought a copy of the Washington Post from a newsstand. There, on the front page, above the fold, CIA accused of murdering retired operatives. Internal documents reveal assassination program targeting former officers. The byline, Frank Russo. Raymond read the article standing on the sidewalk, coffee in one hand, newspaper in the other. Russo had done exactly what he'd promised, a thorough, carefully sourced story that laid out the evidence of clean clock, named William Hadley as the authorizing official, described the MK Shadow torture program, and listed 15 living targets who remained at risk. Raymond's name was in the article, identified as a source and a target. His photo, an old service photo from his CIA personnel file that Rousseau must have obtained, was printed next to the story. By publishing his name and photo, Rousseau had made Raymond unkillable. The whole world was watching now. If anything happened to Raymond, everyone would know who was responsible. Within hours, the story exploded. Every major news network picked it up. CNN, NBC, ABC all running segments about the CIA assassination program. By afternoon, the Senate Intelligence Committee had announced emergency hearings. By evening, the Attorney General had appointed a special prosecutor to investigate. William Hadley resigned. 3 other CIA officials were placed on administrative leave. The Director of Central Intelligence held a press conference denying knowledge of the programs but promising full cooperation with investigations. Raymond watched it all unfold from a cheap motel room in Maryland, where he'd checked in using his real name for the first time in days. He was safe now, protected by publicity, by investigations, by the harsh light of public scrutiny that made further violence impossible. Over the following weeks, more details emerged. Other victims of MK Shadow came forward with stories of torture and abuse. Family members of the 22 people marked complete on the clean clock list demanded investigations into their deaths. Congressional hearings were scheduled. Criminal charges were filed. Raymond testified 3 times, once to Senate investigators, once to the Justice Department, once to a grand jury. Each time, he told the truth about his career, his knowledge, and what Victor Orlov had revealed. Each time he faced hostile questioning from people who accused him of lying, of betraying the agency, of making up stories to settle old grudges. But the evidence was irrefutable. The documents were authentic. The crimes had been committed. In March 1998, William Hadley and 4 other CIA officials were indicted on charges of conspiracy to commit murder, unlawful experimentation on human subjects, and obstruction of justice. Their trials would take years, but eventually, 3 of them were convicted and sentenced to prison. The other 15 names on the clean clock list were placed under protective custody. Security details. New identities for those who wanted them. Financial compensation for the trauma of learning they'd been marked for death by their own government. Raymond declined the new identity. He'd spent enough of his life hiding. He sold his townhouse in Reston and moved to a small coastal town in North Carolina, Beaufort, a fishing village with salt air and slow rhythms and people who didn't ask too many questions about your past. He bought a small house 3 blocks from the water. He got a dog, a golden retriever he named Lincoln. He volunteered at the local library and the Maritime Museum. He went fishing on weekends with some of the locals, who gradually accepted him as one of their own. He lived quietly, peacefully, but never completely at ease. Because he knew things that most people didn't, that governments commit terrible crimes in the name of security, that good people sometimes do evil things when they convince themselves it's necessary, that the price of secrets is paid in human lives, and the debt is never fully settled. Every year on Christmas, Raymond received a postcard, never from the same location twice. Prague in 1998, Istanbul in 1999, Buenos Aires in 2000, Bangkok in 2001. The postcards were always blank except for a single sentence, handwritten in English. The clock still ticks. Raymond never learned who sent them. Victor Orlov's body had never been positively identified. The remains recovered from the Falls Church fire were too badly burned for DNA analysis. Officially, Orlov was presumed dead. But Raymond wondered. Victor had survived the KGB, survived CIA torture, survived years of being hunted. Could he have survived one more impossible situation? Raymond liked to think so. He liked to imagine Orlov somewhere in the world, free living under a new name, sending those postcards as a reminder that they'd both survived, that they'd won. Or maybe the postcards were from someone else entirely. Someone else who knew the truth and wanted Raymond to remember. It didn't matter. The message was clear either way. Some mechanisms, once set in motion, never fully stop. Some watches keep ticking long after they're supposed to wind down. Raymond understood that better than anyone. He lived in Beaufort for 7 more years, into his mid-70s, watching the ocean and remembering the people he'd known, the things he'd done, the secrets he'd kept, and the ones he'd exposed. He thought about Margaret often, wishing she'd lived to see him finally free from the life he'd led. He called his children more frequently, rebuilding relationships that had suffered from his secret. In 2005, at the age of 76, Raymond died peacefully in his sleep. Natural causes. A heart that simply stopped, worn out by years of stress and secrets and carrying burdens no one should have to carry alone. His obituary in the local paper was short. Raymond Holloway, 76, retired government worker. Passed away December 24th. He is survived by 2 children and 3 grandchildren. Memorial service to be held at Beaufort Community Church. No mention of the CIA, no mention of Clean Clock or MK Shadow or the Christmas turkey that changed everything. Just the quiet exit of a quiet man in a quiet town. But in Washington, in Langley, in the offices of intelligence officials and congressional investigators, Raymond's name was remembered. He became a symbol, the whistleblower who'd exposed one of the darkest chapters in CIA history. The man who'd risked everything to tell the truth. And in Beaufort, North Carolina, people remembered him too. As a kind neighbor who'd helped when someone needed it. As a man who'd loved his dog and his fishing trips and his quiet life by the sea. As someone who'd made peace with his past and found a way to live with the weight of what he'd done and what had been done to him. The Christmas turkey had looked perfect. Until Raymond found the CIA microbomb trigger inside. That discovery had set in motion a chain of events that exposed conspiracies, saved lives, and brought justice to people who thought they were above it. Some stories end with explosions and dramatic confrontations. This one ended with an old man sleeping peacefully in a house by the ocean. His conscience finally clear, his debts finally paid. The clock had ticked, the watch had wound down, and Raymond Keith Holloway, the watchmaker, had finally found rest. Thank you for staying with us through this incredible journey. Raymond Holloway's story reminds us that courage sometimes means standing alone against impossible odds, that truth, no matter how dangerous, deserves to be told, and that even people who've done dark things in service of their country can find redemption by choosing what's right over what's easy. Victor Orloff gave his life to expose the truth. Raymond risked everything to make sure that sacrifice meant something. Together they stopped a conspiracy that had already claimed 22 lives and would have claimed many more. Now we want to hear from you. What did you think of this story? Were you surprised by the twists and turns? Tell us in the comments below, and let us know your name and what city and state you're watching from. We love hearing from our viewers around the world. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next incredible tale. And don't forget to click the like button. It really helps us bring you more amazing content. There's another fascinating story waiting for you right now. Check out the video appearing on your screen about another retired operative who discovered secrets that changed everything. Click on it and keep the journey going. Thank you for watching. Until next time, remember, some stories sound too incredible to be true, but sometimes truth is more compelling than any fiction.